an MP, I think, for 8 years. Her party have been in government for 7.5 of those 8 years. She was the Children's Minister. She was the Women's and Equalities Minister. I can't remember her, I can't recall her once raising this issue in the House, once calling for a national inquiry. It's only in recent days she's jumped on the bandwagon. Now, Mr. Speaker, in fairness, if I'm wrong about that, and she has raised it, then I invite her to say that now, and I will happily withdraw the remark that she hasn't raised it in this House in the 8 years that she's been here until today.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is being very specific because I have raised this issue. I've raised it in speeches, I've raised it publicly. He knows that as a minister, I would not have been speaking on this specific issue. I was not a Home Office minister, but Mr. Speaker, I will remind him about other victims who came to me, who I did help. The victims of the Tavistock scandal, who came to me as a minister. I didn't send them away like his safeguarding minister. I made sure, as his Labour Party were calling me transphobic, that we launched the CAS review, which even his health secretary has accepted. So we do right by victims, Mr. Speaker.
Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch has told Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer he risks fueling accusations of a cover-up by refusing to hold a national inquiry into grooming gangs. She also accused the PM of not wanting questions asked of Labour politicians who may be complicit. Sir Keir argued that several inquiries had already been held into abuse carried out by gangs of men, predominantly of Pakistani heritage, and that a new probe would only delay the action the victims wanted. And he said he would call out anyone who prevented victims of sexual abuse from coming forward. The Conservatives have tabled an amendment to the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill which calls for a national inquiry. In the unlikely event the amendment is approved, the bill, which includes measures aimed at protecting children and tougher rules around homeschooling, as well as changes to academies, would be scuppered. Sir Keir said it was shocking Conservative MPs would try to block a bill aimed at helping vulnerable children by voting for the Tory amendment and accused Badenoch of weak leadership. He said reasonable people could agree or disagree on whether there should be a fresh probe and acknowledged that there were mixed views among victims and survivors. However, he accused Badenoch of only recently taking an interest in the subject and said she had failed to take action when she was in government. I can't recall her once raising this issue in the House, once calling for a national inquiry, he said. Making her argument for a fresh inquiry during Prime Minister's questions, Badenoch said no one has joined the dots, no one has the total picture. She noted that the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse, which lasted for 7 years and concluded in 2022, had not had a specific focus on grooming gangs. We don't need to repeat the work that has already been done. Let's look at new areas. She said a new inquiry could explore if there was a racial and cultural motivation to some of these crimes. Be a leader, not a lawyer. She urged the Prime Minister a reference to his job before coming into politics. The current row over the subject was triggered after GB News reported that the government had refused Oldham Council's request for a government-led inquiry into historical child sexual exploitation. Elon Musk, the tech billionaire and advisor to President-elect Donald Trump, has made numerous incendiary interventions on the subject, including accusing Sir Keir of being complicit in the rope of Britain. Following Prime Minister's questions, he posted a message on social media urging MPs to back an inquiry, adding hundreds of thousands of little girls in Britain who were, and still are, being systematically, horrifically gang raped deserve some justice in this world.
Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips, who turned down the request, has argued that in her experience locally led inquiries, such as the one held in Telford, were more effective at implementing change. However, speaking to Sky News, she said nothing is off the table, adding, "If the victims come forward to me in this victims panel and they say, actually, we think there needs to be a national inquiry into this, I'll listen to them." Following Prime Minister's question, a Downing Street spokesman said that significant engagement with victims groups had shown they do not want to see a national inquiry. They want action taken to deliver justice. But as the Prime Minister said on Monday, we will always remain open-minded. We will always listen to local authorities who want to take forward inquiries, or indeed further allegations that need to be followed up, MPs are currently debating the Children's Well-being and Schools Bill and will vote on the Conservatives' amendment in the evening. The Liberal Democrats have said they will abstain on the amendment. The party's education spokesperson Munira Wilson said it would kill crucial child protection measures and accused the Conservatives of using the victims of this scandal as a political football. Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK, said his party would back the amendment but said the Conservatives' interest in the subject was insincere. He added that if the government would not call an inquiry, Reform would raise money to appoint independent arbiters to examine the subject. The bill would require all councils to hold a register of children who are not in school. It would also prevent parents from having an automatic right to take their children out of school for home education if the young person is subject to a child protection investigation or suspected of being at risk of significant harm. Conservatives have been critical of sections of the bill which states that all teachers should be part of the same core pay and conditions framework whether they work in a local authority-run school or an academy. Academies, which are independent of local authorities, currently have the freedom to set their own pay and conditions for staff, and some academies exceed the national pay scales for teachers. Conservative Shadow Education Secretary Laura Trott called the move educational vandalism, arguing that academies would lose freedoms that can help to recruit teachers and improve pupil outcomes in challenging areas. In early January 2025, a significant political debate unfolded between UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch concerning the necessity of a new national inquiry into historical child sexual exploitation, particularly focusing on grooming gangs. This issue gained prominence following public criticisms from figures like Elon Musk, who accused Starmer of being complicit in such scandals.
During Prime Minister's questions, Badenoch challenged Starmer, advocating for a comprehensive inquiry to address alleged cover-ups in numerous northern towns. She argued that previous investigations were insufficient and that a new inquiry was essential to fully understand the extent of grooming gang activities. In response, Starmer opposed the call for a new inquiry, expressing concerns that it would delay actionable measures for victims. He referenced the prior independent inquiry into child sexual abuse, which spanned 7 years, suggesting that initiating another extensive investigation could postpone progress until 2031. Starmer emphasized the importance of implementing existing recommendations to provide immediate support to victims rather than engaging in further prolonged inquiries. The exchange between Starmer and Badenoch highlighted differing approaches to addressing child sexual exploitation. Badenoch accused Starmer of political opportunism and urged him to be a leader, not a lawyer, implying that decisive action was needed over legalistic caution. Starmer, in turn, criticized the Conservative stance as a politicization of a sensitive issue, accusing them of amplifying far-right rhetoric and neglecting to act during their previous tenure in government. This debate underscores the complexities involved in addressing historical child sexual exploitation cases in the UK, balancing the need for thorough investigation with the imperative of prompt action to support victims and prevent future abuses. In addition to the previously discussed exchanges between Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch regarding the call for a new national inquiry into historical child sexual exploitation by grooming gangs, several developments have further intensified the debate. The Conservative Party has tabled an amendment to the Children's Well-being and Schools Bill, proposing the inclusion of a statutory national inquiry into grooming gangs. Labour officials have expressed concerns that this amendment could jeopardize the entire bill, which aims to enhance protections for vulnerable children. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson described the Conservative move as sickening, accusing them of endangering child safety for political gain. The debate has garnered significant public attention, partly due to interventions from high-profile individuals like Elon Musk, who has used social media to criticize UK politicians over their handling of grooming gang scandals. Musk's comments have been amplified by certain accounts on his platform, leading to concerns about the spread of misinformation and the politicization of sensitive issues. Prime Minister Starmer has reiterated his commitment to implementing the recommendations from previous inquiries, such as the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse led by Professor Alexis J.
If you guys have enjoyed this video, please do not forget to subscribe and leave a like. Much appreciated.